All roads lead to Rome. Or at least, that's what we've always been told. But what if the Rome we know, the Rome of postcards, Hollywood movies, and history textbooks, is not the full story? Today, we're diving into a mystery that sits right in the heart of Western civilization. A mystery hiding in plain sight, inside the stones of the Eternal City itself. Because between ancient Rome and Renaissance Rome lies a 1,000-year gap that simply does not add up. This is not a conspiracy video. This is a documentary investigation. And by the end, you may never look at history or the Vatican the same way again. Setting the stage. Rome is a city of two worlds. On one side, the Colosseum, the Pantheon, the ancient Forum, monuments from the first centuries A.D. On the other, the masterpieces of the Renaissance, St. Peter's Basilica, the Sistine architecture, the Vatican Walls. But between these two eras, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th century Rome is almost non-existent. No major monuments, no grand cathedrals, not even a single architectural landmark that matches the 1,000-year timeline we're taught. Historians shrug and say they were destroyed, rebuilt, lost. But can an entire millennium leave zero architectural fingerprint? The first anomaly, the Vatican Walls. Our investigation begins inside the Vatican. Official history says the massive Leonine walls were built in the 9th century under Pope Leo IV. Their purpose? To defend against Arab sea raiders. But here's the first red flag. These walls aren't simple medieval barriers. They're engineered like 16th century star forts, a design created specifically to resist cannon fire. Cannons didn't appear in Europe until 700 years later. So how did 9th century builders design perfect anti-artillery geometry? How did they predict weapons that didn't exist yet? Either A, medieval engineers were 700 years ahead of global military knowledge, or B, these walls were built much later and their history was rewritten, the brick that shouldn't exist. Now we move to another anomaly. Compare the brickwork of the Pantheon, 126 A.D., with the brickwork of the Renaissance buildings, 1500s. Same size, same color, same industrial firing technique. But official history says the technology to produce high-quality fired brick was lost for 1,000 years, then magically rediscovered during the Renaissance. Can humanity truly forget how to fire clay? The same basic technique used for pottery? A process any village kiln could replicate? Did Europe voluntarily return to the Stone Age for no logical reason? Or were both the Pantheon and the Renaissance brick structures built much closer in time than we've been told? The gap doesn't make sense. When you connect these inconsistencies, future technology walls, forgotten brick tech, zero architecture for 1,000 years, a pattern appears. A pattern that suggests the timeline itself may have been stretched, inflated, or manipulated. But if the history of Rome is inconsistent, could it be that we're looking at the wrong Rome altogether? All roads lead where? We're told all roads lead to Rome. But take a globe, take a map, look at the positioning. Italy, sitting on a peninsula that requires a detour from every major Eurasian route, is not the center of anything. Now look east, to Istanbul, formerly Constantinople, a perfect crossroads, Asia, Africa, Europe, land routes, sea routes, Silk Road caravans. If there was ever a true center of the world, this was it. Historians call it the Second Rome, but geographically, politically, economically, it looks more like the real Rome.
Eternal versus constant. Italiano Rome is called the Eternal City. Constantinople means the constant city. Same meaning, same symbolism. The Renaissance popes often used symbols originally tied to the Byzantine world. Many Italian towns, Florence, Siena, claimed Roman heritage long before Rome itself became a major power. In fact, before the 15th century, Rome wasn't even the main city in central Italy. Florence was. Siena was. Rome was a minor town. Was Italian Rome's history expanded retroactively? Were events from Constantinople stitched onto Rome's timeline? A different kind of empire. To understand how this happened, we need to rethink what the Roman Empire truly was. We imagine legions, emperors, conquests. But empires aren't built by swords. They're built by economics. What if Rome had been less a country and more a gigantic economic corporation? Unified laws, Roman law. Unified currency, unified trade routes. Who ran the finances? The church. The church banned everyone but itself from lending money with interest. So monasteries became banks, treasuries, credit centers, financial fortresses. And the emperors? Not almighty rulers, but corporate managers handling security and logistics. Suddenly, history looks like a financial empire, not a political one. The church's monopoly cracks. But over time, new players rose, national monarchies who wanted control of their own money. They rebelled against the church's financial monopoly. We know this era as the Reformation. But behind the religious language was a brutal economic war, a war that fractured Europe, shattered the old system, and forced the Vatican into the greatest cover-up in human history. Shocking possibility about Peter. And now we reach the most controversial idea. What if the martyrdom of the Apostle Peter did not happen in the first century? What if Peter lived during the Reformation around the 1500s? What if he was a reformer, supporting ideas similar to Martin Luther, challenging the Vatican's financial empire from within? And what if the church silenced him, eliminated him, and then moved the story back 1500 years to cover the crime? This is extreme, controversial, shocking, but the evidence inside St. Peter's Basilica is strange. Pagan symbols on papal tombs. Look at the tombs of Renaissance popes. Minerva, goddess of war. Fortuna, Clio, muse of history. Not angels, not saints, no crosses. Why would Christian popes immortalize themselves with pagan gods? Because before the Reformation, the Vatican wasn't purely Christian. It was a religious financial hybrid, a pantheon of many acceptable beliefs. Christianity was just one branch of the corporation. In this context, someone pushing for pure Christianity, like Peter in this theory, would not be a saint. He would be a threat. Who was Nero really? History blames Emperor Nero for Peter's death, but what if Nero never existed as we imagine him? Some researchers argue Nero is a symbolic stand-in for Pope Leo X, the pope who excommunicated Martin Luther. If true, then the pagan emperor who killed Peter was actually a Renaissance pope, and the church hid the event by pushing it back into antiquity. How do you hide a crime? If Peter was executed in the 1500s, the church needed to erase all evidence,
so they rewrote time itself. They created a fictional dark age, imaginary dynasties, fabricated empires, invented wars, a 1,000-year historical gap. Why? To bury the truth under layers of fabricated chronology. Turning a rebel into a symbol. The final twist? The Vatican turned its greatest internal enemy into its greatest symbol. The keys of Peter became the key to heaven, the key to indulgences, the key to the Church's financial monopoly. The man who may have rebelled against the system became the face of the system. Brilliant, terrifying, effective. Conclusion plus open ending. So what are we left with? Walls older than their era. Bricks identical across 1,500 years. A missing millennium. A misplaced capital. Pagan gods in Christian tombs. A rewritten timeline. A rebel transformed into a saint. This isn't proof, but it is smoke. A lot of smoke. Enough to ask dangerous questions. Did the Vatican rewrite history? Is Constantinople the real Rome? And how much of the world we believe in was engineered to protect power? You don't have to accept this theory, but once you see the cracks, you can never unsee them. Our past may be far stranger, far more complex, and far more manipulated than any of us ever imagined. Friends, how was the story? I hope you enjoyed it. If you really liked it, don't forget to hit the like button, drop a comment, and subscribe to the channel. And make sure to turn on the bell icon so you'll be the very first to get the next video as soon as it drops tonight. That's all for now. Stay well, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.